Hello friends, and welcome to the Sleepy Brain Science Channel. Tonight we are slipping quietly into the world of animals. At first glance, the animal kingdom can seem familiar. Dogs curled at your feet, birds passing a window, a cat folding itself into sleep in a patch of afternoon sun. But the deeper you look, the stranger and more astonishing it becomes. There are creatures that breathe through their skin, and others that hold their breath for hours beneath the ice. There are animals that sleep for months at a time, and animals that seem never to sleep at all. There are those that can hear sounds no human ear could find, and those that navigate entire oceans using nothing more than the pull of the Earth's magnetic field. The animal world is full of patience, invention, and quiet endurance in places where life should not be possible. It is full of strategies so unusual and so precise that they feel almost impossible until you sit with them for a moment. If you enjoy these gentle journeys into science and nature, I invite you to like, subscribe, or leave a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy mind at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Let your shoulders drop, let your breath slow, let your thoughts soften around the edges, and let your mind drift into this strange, warm, endlessly surprising world of creatures great and small. Let us begin. There is an animal that can survive being almost completely frozen. The wood frog lives in the forests of North America, and when winter arrives, it does something that seems more like a story than a fact. Its heart stops. Its breathing stops. Ice crystals form inside its body. To any outside observer, it would look completely dead. Yet when spring comes and temperatures rise, the frog simply thaws. The heart begins again, the legs begin to move, and the animal carries on as though nothing unusual has happened at all. It survives this process through a kind of antifreeze chemistry it produces in its own blood. Glucose floods the cells before freezing begins, protecting the tissue from the kind of damage that would otherwise destroy them. The result is a creature that has found a way to pause life itself and resume it on the other side of the coldest months. There is something deeply calming about that idea. A small frog sitting still beneath the snow, waiting with perfect patience for the warmth to return. The blue whale is the largest animal that has ever lived on Earth. Not just the largest alive today, the largest in all of known natural history, larger than any dinosaur that has been found. A full-grown blue whale can stretch to nearly 30 meters from snout to tail. Its heart alone is roughly the size of a small car, and the sound of its heartbeat can sometimes be detected from 2 meters away through the surface of the skin. When it calls, the sound travels through the ocean at a depth and volume that can carry for hundreds of kilometers under the right conditions. These are animals communicating across stretches of water that no human voice could ever hope to reach. And yet, for all that scale and power, a blue whale feeds almost entirely on tiny shrimp-like creatures called krill. Each day, it may filter several tons of them, something almost the size of a building, sustained by some of the smallest creatures in the sea.
This is not as common as it might sound. Most animals, when placed in front of a mirror, treat the reflection as another individual. They may become defensive or curious or confused. But elephants, along with a small number of other species, will investigate their own reflections in a way that suggests genuine self-recognition. In experiments, researchers have marked elephants with paint in places only visible in a mirror. Some elephants reach up to touch those marks on their own bodies, showing they understand that what they see in the glass is themselves. That kind of self-awareness has long been associated with intelligence, memory, and social complexity. Elephants also grieve their dead, returning to the bones of lost family members and spending long moments touching them gently with their trunks. They seem to mourn in a way that feels, from a distance, not so different from the way people do. The mantis shrimp can see colors that no human eye can perceive. Our eyes hold 3 types of color receptors. Most birds have 4. The mantis shrimp has 16. What that means for its experience of the world is difficult to even imagine. Some researchers believe the shrimp's visual system works very differently from ours, processing color information in a more immediate and parallel way rather than comparing signals across receptors. But the fact remains that it is seeing a version of the ocean that is closed to almost every other creature. It also strikes with one of the fastest and most powerful movements in the animal kingdom. The club-like appendages at the front of its body accelerate with such speed that they create a shock wave in the water, one powerful enough to stun or kill prey even without direct contact. The strike is so fast that it can shatter glass aquarium walls. A small, brilliantly colored creature that sees a world invisible to us and moves faster than most eyes can follow. Some birds can navigate by the stars. Long before humans mapped the night sky and turned it into a system for direction, certain birds were already using it. Indigo buntings, for example, learned the pattern of stars rotating around the north celestial pole when they are young and use that pattern throughout their lives to find direction during migration. These journeys can span thousands of kilometers, across oceans, across continents, in the dark, against wind, with nothing but an internal map built from starlight absorbed in the first weeks of life. Other birds use magnetic fields, polarized light, smell, and landscape memory. Some may use several of these at once, cross-referencing one signal against another the way a careful traveler checks a compass against a visible landmark. The precision of these journeys, made without instruments or maps, done by animals weighing less than a handful of coins, is one of the quieter miracles of the natural world. An octopus has 3 hearts. 2 of them pump blood to the gills. One pumps it to the rest of the body. And the blood itself is blue because it carries oxygen using copper-based molecules rather than the iron-based ones that make human blood red. In cold, low-oxygen water, the copper-based system works more efficiently, which is part of why it has remained. When an octopus swims, the central heart actually stops beating, which is why they tend to prefer crawling to swimming. It tires them more quickly. They are built for stealth and precision rather than speed. Each of an octopus's arms also has its own nervous system capable of making decisions without input from the central brain. The arm can taste what it touches, respond to its environment, and act semi-independently. In a real sense, an octopus is several minds working in loose coordination with a central one. They are also known to recognize individual human faces, to play, to escape from enclosures, and to carry objects for future use. Whatever intelligence means, they seem to have a form of it quite unlike anything else on Earth.
The immortal jellyfish can age in reverse. Turgitopsis dornei is a small species of jellyfish that, when stressed or injured or simply old, can revert its cells to an earlier developmental state. It essentially becomes young again. The adult form can return to the juvenile polyp stage and begin its life cycle over. In theory, this process could repeat indefinitely, which is why it carries the word immortal in its common name. In practice, many are eaten or die from infection or injury before completing more than a few cycles, but the biology itself is real.
Scientists studying the mechanisms behind this are interested not only in the jellyfish, but in what the process might one day teach us about aging at the cellular level. A tiny, translucent creature, barely larger than a fingernail, quietly carrying within it something that has fascinated biologists for decades. Crows can hold a grudge. Researchers at the University of Washington discovered this while studying how crows respond to being captured. When scientists wore particular masks during trapping operations, crows began to recognize those masks and respond aggressively to any person wearing them, even years later, even when the wearer was a different individual the crow had never encountered before. They would call out warnings to other crows, they would dive and scold, and they would pass this information on to their young. A mask associated with a bad experience became a community-wide signal across generations, even though the original birds who had learned to associate it with danger were in many cases no longer alive. Crows also use tools, solve multi-step puzzles, trade objects with each other, and recognize fairness. They can distinguish being treated well from being treated badly and seem to respond accordingly over time. These are not simple reactive animals. They are building and maintaining something that looks from the outside like social memory. A tardigrade can survive in the vacuum of outer space. Tardigrades are microscopic animals found almost everywhere on Earth, in moss, in leaf litter, in the film of water on a rooftop, in polar ice. They are sometimes called water bears, though they look more like a small, soft machine with stubby legs and a body that can be made almost entirely inert when conditions become dangerous. When they desiccate, they pull into a form called a ton, reducing their metabolism to nearly zero. In that state, they have been shown to survive extreme pressure, radiation, temperatures close to absolute zero, and yes, the vacuum of space for at least a short period. They have also been found to survive the deep ocean, the tops of mountains, and over a century of drying in a museum specimen before being rehydrated and continuing to move. They are not dramatic. They do not have sharp teeth or vivid colors or great size. They are barely visible without magnification, and yet they may be among the most resilient animals ever found. Sea otters hold hands while they sleep. They float on their backs at the surface, resting in a slow drift, and they will often grasp the paw of another otter beside them so that the current does not carry them apart during the night. Groups of resting otters are called rafts, and within them, this gentle contact keeps individuals connected while they sleep. They also wrap themselves in kelp for the same reason, anchoring their bodies so they do not drift out to sea while unconscious. Sea otters spend most of their lives on the water, eating, grooming, resting, and raising their young there. They are one of the very few non-primate animals known to use tools, cracking open shells against a stone balanced on their chest. A mother will carry her pup on her stomach, grooming its fur until it traps enough air to float like a small cork while she hunts for food beneath. There is something in that image, the small pup floating safe on the surface while the mother hunts below, that is very hard to leave behind once you have heard it. A dog's nose is wet for a reason. The moisture on a dog's nose helps it absorb scent molecules from the air, making smell more precise. Dogs have roughly 300 million olfactory receptors in their nose. Humans have around 6 million. The part of a dog's brain devoted to analyzing scent is proportionally about 40 times larger than the equivalent region in the human brain. They can detect smells at concentrations nearly 100,000 times lower than the human threshold. They can tell the difference between identical twins by scent alone. Trained dogs have been shown to detect cancers, blood sugar changes, and seizures before they occur by smell. The world a dog lives in is layered with information that is almost entirely invisible to us. A patch of grass that looks ordinary is, to a dog, a detailed account of who has been there, when, how fast, and in what condition. The walk you take together is for you a visual experience. For your dog, it is something more like reading.
Horses can sleep standing up. They have a system of tendons and ligaments in their legs that allows them to lock their joints and rest their muscles without lying down. This is called the stay apparatus, and it means a horse can doze upright while using almost no muscular effort. They do this partly because lying down makes them vulnerable. As prey animals, rising quickly from a prone position takes precious seconds. Standing, a horse is ready to move at almost any moment. But horses do still need to lie down for deeper REM sleep, the stage where dreaming is thought to occur. And they tend to take that sleep in short bursts, usually when other herd members are awake and standing guard nearby. They rest in shifts, trusting the group to watch while individuals take their turn at deeper rest. That mutual watching is not arranged or discussed. It arises from the social instincts of the herd, from thousands of generations of animals who survived by staying alert together. Dolphins sleep with one eye open. More precisely, they sleep with one half of their brain at a time. The other half remains conscious, controlling breathing, monitoring the environment, and keeping the animal moving slowly at the surface. This is called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, and it allows dolphins to rest without ever becoming fully unconscious. After a period, the sleeping half wakes and the alert half rests. The eye connected to the sleeping hemisphere closes, the other stays open. Some migratory birds do something similar during long flights, resting one hemisphere while the other navigates and monitors the world. For animals that must keep breathing consciously or stay alert to predators or continue moving through an ocean that does not stop for sleep, full unconsciousness is a risk that evolution found ways to reduce. The result is a kind of rest most people would barely recognize as sleep at all, done on the wing or underwater with half a mind always watching. Butterflies taste with their feet. Chemoreceptors located on their front legs allow them to sense chemicals the moment they land. This is particularly important for females looking to lay eggs. When a butterfly lands on a leaf, it is immediately sampling the plant's chemistry through its feet to determine whether it is the right species, whether it is healthy, and whether it will support the larvae once they hatch. The accuracy of this judgment is remarkable. Many butterfly species will lay only on specific plants, sometimes only on a single genus, and the selection is made in seconds through sensory organs most people do not know exist. The whole surface of a butterfly's world is something to be tasted as well as seen. Landing is not a pause, it is a form of reading. Every surface encountered is immediately interrogated, assessed, and either accepted or abandoned. What looks from the outside like a delicate creature resting on a petal is, on the inside, a precise chemical analysis already underway. The axolotl can regrow entire limbs. Not just skin or muscle, bone, nerve tissue, portions of the heart, and even parts of the brain can regenerate in this remarkable amphibian. A limb removed cleanly will, over weeks and months, grow back with full function.
The replacement is not a scar or a simplified version. It is a working limb, correctly structured, reconnected to the nervous system. Scientists have spent decades studying the mechanisms behind this ability, hoping to understand what axolotls do differently from most vertebrates, including humans, who lost much of this regenerative capacity somewhere in evolutionary history. Axolotls also retain their juvenile features throughout life, a condition called neoteny. They keep their external feathery gills, their larval proportions, their soft and almost cartoonish appearance, even as adults. They never fully metamorphosize the way most amphibians do. The result is an animal that looks permanently young, lives its whole life in water, regrows its own body parts, and has become one of the most studied creatures in regenerative biology. It is found naturally in only one lake system near Mexico City and is now critically endangered in the wild. Wolves change rivers. This is one of the more surprising examples of what ecologists call a trophic cascade, a chain of effects that flows down through an ecosystem from a single change at the top. When wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park in 1995 after an absence of decades, the effects spread further than anyone fully anticipated. Elk herds now facing predation changed their grazing behavior. They avoided open riverbanks and valleys where they could not watch for wolves. This allowed vegetation in those areas to recover. Trees and shrubs grew back along the river edges. Roots stabilized the banks. The rivers, no longer eroding as quickly, began to change course, to run slower in some places and to deepen in others. The presence of wolves, which never touched the rivers directly, altered the rivers by altering the behavior of the animals that grazed beside them. Ecosystems are not collections of separate things. They are webs, and pulling or adding a thread in one place sends its effects traveling in directions that are not always easy to predict.
The pistol shrimp stuns prey with sound. It does this not with a weapon, but with its own claw. When the claw snaps shut at extraordinary speed, it creates a jet of water that moves so fast, a bubble of low pressure forms in its wake. That bubble collapses almost instantly, generating a shock wave, a flash of light, and a temperature briefly comparable to the surface of the sun, though lasting only a fraction of a millisecond and spanning an incredibly tiny space. The resulting snap is one of the loudest sounds produced by any animal relative to its body size, and it stuns or kills small prey outright. Colonies of pistol shrimp are so loud that submarine commanders in the Second World War sometimes used their noise to hide the sounds of their vessels. The clicking of millions of these small claws created a background roar that made sonar detection more difficult in certain waters. A creature barely longer than a thumb, hunting with a sound that briefly creates the temperature of a star, so common in some places it hid warships. Some animals sleep for most of their lives. The little brown bat, for example, spends more than 19 hours of each day in torpor or sleep. During winter hibernation, that rest extends for months. A bat hanging in a cave in January may barely move, its heart slowing to a few beats per minute, its temperature dropping close to the surrounding air. Koalas sleep between 18 and 22 hours a day. This is in part because eucalyptus leaves, their primary food source, are extraordinarily difficult to digest and yield very little energy. The koala has adapted by reducing its metabolic needs to a minimum, spending almost all of its life in still, drowsy conservation.
The snail can sleep for up to 3 years, entering a long torpor triggered by drought or cold, sealed inside its shell by a layer of mucus that hardens into a protective covering. It waits with no apparent urgency for conditions that might never come during a human lifetime. Sleep in the animal world is not a pause from life. For many creatures, it is the dominant state, and waking is the brief interruption. A cat's purr may have healing properties. The vibrations of a cat's purr typically fall between 25 and 150 hertz. Research into bone and tissue healing has found that vibrations in this same frequency range can promote the repair of bones, tendons, and muscles, and may reduce swelling and pain. Whether cats purr specifically because of this is unclear. They purr when content, but also when stressed, injured, or giving birth, which suggests it may serve multiple purposes, including self-soothing and physical recovery. What is clear is that the frequency matches ranges studied in therapeutic vibration research, which is why the idea has attracted scientific attention rather than being dismissed as coincidence. People have lived beside cats for 10,000 years, and in all that time, the purring has been present, that low vibration passing from warm fur into whatever surface the animal rests upon. It is one of the most familiar sounds in domestic life, and it may, quietly, be doing something more than simply sounding peaceful. The Arctic tern makes the longest migration of any known animal. Each year, it travels from its breeding grounds in the Arctic to the Antarctic and back, a round trip that can exceed 70,000 kilometers. It sees more daylight than any creature, following the sun across hemispheres as the seasons turn. Over a lifetime that can span 30 years, an Arctic tern may travel a distance equivalent to 3 trips to the moon and back, and it does this on wings that weigh less than a single piece of paper. Researchers attaching tiny tracking devices to these birds have found that the routes are not simply straight lines. They bow outward in long curves that take advantage of prevailing wind patterns, adding distance to save energy in the way a sailor once learned to read the wind across open water. The bird is not lost, it is optimizing, threading itself through the atmosphere with a precision that took humans centuries and compasses to approximate. Elephants communicate through vibrations in the ground. As well as the calls audible to human ears, elephants produce infrasound, vocalizations far below the range of human hearing, that travel not only through the air, but through the soil. Other elephants can detect these signals through sensitive cells in their feet and trunks, picking up vibrations that carry information across distances of several kilometers. Research suggests they use this system to communicate about danger, to coordinate movement across large landscapes, and possibly to stay in contact with individuals they cannot see or hear above the surface. The idea of elephants having an underground communication network, one that runs beneath the grass and soil of the savanna, connecting individuals through the pressure of their own voices pressed into the earth, is one of those facts that takes a moment to fully settle. They are not just large animals in a landscape, they are part of an information system that includes the ground beneath them. Thank you for spending this evening with Sleepy Brain Science. If these journeys bring you rest, please consider liking or subscribing. It helps others find their way here too. Now let your eyes close if they haven't already. Let the images drift. Let the world outside grow quiet. You've earned your rest. Good night.